Hey everyone, welcome to Group Text. My guest today has been in, God, I hate saying this, showbiz forever. I think I have like a couple months on you only because my mother went into labor on stage. Ricki Lake not only started singing and playing for audiences when she was 9, she created the iconic role of Tracy Turnblad in John Waters' original cult hit Hairspray in 1988. We're going to get to that because it's not the Hairspray you think of. She hosted her own talk show, Ricki Lake, from 93 to 2004, returned to daytime from 2012 to 2013 with the Ricki Lake Show, which I did and had very good craft services, which won her a daytime Emmy. You were in China Beach. You did Dancing with the Stars, King of Queens. I'm just going to say it. My guest is a TV workhorse. Ricki Lake, so good to see you.
So nice to see you. I have so many facets of you and us knowing each other professionally, personally. I of course knew your mom, and our kids went to preschool together.
I know,
so it's really good to see you. And we have mutual friends.
And we have mutual. I mean, we have a very long history, and rarely can you say in this town a very good history.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't say I know you that well. We've never had dinner one-on-one together, but everyone loves you, you know,
and everyone loves you.
You are, thank you. And you are exactly like you're exactly who you think she is. You are, you know, you're just a very, very authentic and down-to-earth person.
Which is not what people think.
That is what people think.
I hope so.
Oh, that's what I think.
Okay. I have stuff and looking at this, there's stuff I actually didn't know about you. Hard to believe.
Okay, what?
Okay, you've been in showbiz since you started singing in cabarets and nightclubs at 9.
I started singing lessons at 9. So I don't know if that's like a Google, whatever you looked up, but Wikipedia. I started singing, like taking singing lessons, and I started performing like in a little place called Don't Tell Mama. Your mom might have played that club. It's on 46th Street in the Theater District. Like it's an institution. And I sang there with a group of kids in a thing called The Early Show. I did it for about 3.5 years. The famous people that came out of that, Tashina Arnold was in that cast, if you know who that is, that singer from Martin. And anyway, a lot of people. But yeah, I did sing. And I did Young Stars with Debbie Gibson. I sang with her from the time I was like 13 to about 16. So we sort of grew up together.
I was going to say, it really does. I find it fascinating that you skipped over all of middle school theater and Once Upon a Mattrix right to 2-drink minimum. And Don't Tell Mama.
I know. Well, that was the part that counted. I was actually like performing for people that were paying to be there, you know.
Which is crazy.
I've had a wild ride. My life is like a movie. I say it all the time.
Do you remember what you guys sang?
I remember what I sang. Oh God, what was my song? My big song was like this very seductive song. So I was this very chubby, overweight, awkward girl singing like, it was Where the Boys Are. That's what I sang. Where the Boys Are. Yeah, and like big loud belt. And I was definitely the worst of the group, but it was really a great start for me to be able to learn how to perform for an audience professionally.
Did your parents realize that the irony that was going on and the campiness that was part of that show?
Which show? The kids show that I did as a young kid? Yeah, that you sang
at Where the Boys Are.
I know. I don't think so. But I think it was a perfect precursor for, you know, a few years later to do Hairspray and be Tracy Turnblad, you know?
Yeah, that was fascinating to me because you were a freshman at where?
I was at Ithaca College.
At Ithaca, so
it's 5 hours from New York City. Yes,
cold.
Upstate New York. Freezing. It was a really miserable year. I mean, I don't mean to throw Ithaca under the bus all the time, but it was awful. I mean, I fell in love with a guy who was gay but hadn't come out yet. So here I am. I'm 200 pounds and I'm struggling with like, you know, I was not sexually active. I was not even close. And so that didn't work out for me. And then I was in the musical theater department. They didn't cast me in one show in the entire year I was there. You know, the one woman who's my mentor or my teacher, and she would tell me that I wasn't talented, that I should move on and find something else. So it was a miserable time for me. And then during finals week of my freshman year, I got the call to go in for Hairspray. And it just, that going to that audition and driving 5 hours to meet John Waters, who I didn't even know who he was.
I was going to say, did you know who John Waters was?
I'd never heard of him. I'd never heard of Divine. I was super green and just naive and sheltered from everything. And he for some reason saw Tracy and me, and it went on to open every door and change the trajectory of my life.
So did your agent call you, or did a casting agent call you?
I think I read it in like a backstage or stage, show business,
right.
One of the those newspapers. I think it was an ad, and it said they were looking for a heavyset, a fat girl who could dance. And I definitely was large sized, but I thought I could move pretty well, and I just went on a whim. I mean, it was a very impulsive kind of decision. And I remember getting a speeding ticket on the 5-hour drive down. And I also remember very, very distinctly meeting John Waters and just looking at him with that weird mustache. And, he smoked at the time, and that was when you could smoke inside. And he was just this personality. And, and I just did what I could with the 2 scenes I read. And he brought me back for a dancing callback, and then moved to Baltimore for that summer. And it was just... It was magic. I mean, in the moment, it felt like summer camp. John's, crews, he shoots everything in Baltimore. Everything, yes. Comes from where he's from. His crew they're called the Dreamland family. It's all the same people, every movie. And I made a total of 5 movies with him. 3 I starred in. And it's like a family. It's and they're misfits, and they're, underdogs, and they're, different, and they're amazing. And, making Hairspray, making Crybaby and Serial Mom, and then going off to do my talk show. And now I make these documentaries. I'm just like, my career has just had so many different twists and turns, and I've loved every single one.
I'm shocked that you went to an open casting call,
mm-hmm.
and it all started from that. I
Yep.
mean, you had to walk in. I mean, did you you didn't know who John was. How did you explain him to your parents? How did you explain what you were doing? And then explain the kind of people you were working with, because you had a very traditional, pretty much
background
and family, and like
I wasn't around openly gay people, even except the guy I was in love with at college who wasn't gay at that, wasn't out at that time.
He just liked your shoes.
He
just liked your shoes.
I mean, looking back on it, it's so obvious, but in the moment, he was so cute and pretty, and you
had the same interests.
I don't know what happened to him. I've never found that guy.
But you had the same interests in theater, and
we were totally. And I was so awkward back then. But I forgot what your question was.
My question
was,
what was your question? How did you explain to your parents? So I got this movie, and it's with these people you've never heard of, and they're really weird, and I'm going off to Baltimore.
Well, I didn't know any of that beforehand.
Well, but you walked in and saw that John was odd.
Yeah, but I was 18 years old. I mean, what was my mother going to do? I was making money for the first time in my life. I made $20,000 on that film. And so this was like, this was a success story, no matter how the movie turned out. I mean, I really, it gave me the opportunity to leave school and to not have to go back. And I never went back.
But your parents had to still be in shock the first time they came to set and met Divine.
I mean, I'm estranged from my mother now, and so
but at the time you weren't.
At the time I wasn't, but I was and when I turned 18, I did Hairspray, and I was making my own money. I never went back home. I moved out to LA when I turned 19, and it wasn't a decision for them to be a part of. I was going on my path, and they were supportive from afar, but they didn't influence any decision that I made.
That still had to be a big old eye-opener the first time you meet Divine in the hair and makeup trailer.
I met him before we started shooting, and I went to his hotel at the Belvedere Hotel in Baltimore, and I went to his suite, and I remember it was like the sun was about to set, so it was like dark inside, and it was intimidating because I'd heard about Divine, and I knew that Divine wanted to play my part. He was really upset that he didn't get to play both the mother and the daughter, which he had done in Female Trouble. So he was, definitely like, just who is this bitch? Who is this girl that got my part? But I grew on him, and he's like taught me to walk in heels. I remember he's like, no, you do it like this, and he got up and like showed me how to do it. He was amazing. And the fact that I think your mother sent flowers when he died.
She probably did.
She did. I think she did. He died 8 days after Hairspray opened. So here, like my whole life, I'm becoming like a star overnight, and here, my beloved co-star, it just died in his sleep at 42. He was out in LA doing an episode of Married with Children.
So I don't think what people necessarily, because you're so known for Hairspray, they don't really know the Hairspray necessarily that you were in.
They don't?
I think there's also a generation that only knows Hairspray the musical.
Yeah. But I mean,
you were in the original Hairspray, which was not the musical, and even though it was camp, it really is about race relations in Baltimore.
Right.
There was a real message in it.
And that stands the test of time, unfortunately.
Yes. And then it went to Broadway and became a musical. Then the movie was made.
Right. And I have a cameo in that
yes,
film.
You did.
And I sing on the soundtrack. It was super cool and really like an honor to be a part of all the iterations of Hairspray.
Well, the thing is, it's so clean and sanitized. It's now in high schools. Did you even obviously that did not cross, it was not that way in 88.
I mean, I'd never had a movie come out before, so I didn't know what to expect. And no, I mean, it was a very, very low budget independent film. I think it cost them $2.5 million to make, and it didn't gross very much money, but it was a critical success. There were great reviews, and I was discovered, and people said great things about me. But the fact that, I mean, Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman are geniuses, and they came and turned what was a very special movie. Hairspray, the original, is very special. It holds up today. And to turn it into this musical that was so extraordinary. And the cast from Marisa to, I mean, it just was something, like a needle in a haystack, And it was a weird moment for me going back and seeing. I went to the opening of the Broadway show.
Yeah. I
also had them on my show, on my talk show to promote the show. It was bittersweet for me because I'm a singer,
exactly. It had to be, you're a singer dancer, and you're like, I want to sing that song.
Yeah, well, no, before when it was being done, I wanted to audition for my part for me, and John Waters said, he goes, "You're not, what did he say? You're too old and you're not fat anymore." And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, he had a point. I wasn't, and maybe I was too old, but it was still
fuck you and thank you.
It was hard, exactly. It was heartbreaking, and then I got over it. And it's like, it's such a great feeling to see all these young women take over this role and frickin' shine. I mean, Marisa to Maddie Ballio to Nikki Blonsky. I mean, they kill it. So
I mean, it's such a star turn.
It is. And I think what it represented, like, look at, being a larger size or a normal size young woman, to be able to win the guy and win the contest and get the guy. I mean, it's just like, it's messaging that I think is really, really powerful for young girls to see.
And still is.
I think so too.
Was
yes, more
edgy messaging in the beginning. You talk about that. You mentioned that John has these ongoing relationships with people.
Mm-hmm. John Waters. Yeah.
Yes. My mother, so he used to send my mother Christmas ornaments every year. Did you ever get those? The glass bulb with the cockroach in them?
Yeah, yes. I still have it in a box somewhere.
So do I.
What did your mother think? Did she laugh about it?
My mother adored John.
That's
adored.
Not surprising at all.
Because you're talking about two people that always felt like misfits.
Yes. Well, I got to do something because, I mean, just to see your mom with John, like in a room or at a dinner table, I mean, that would be so fun. I got to introduce John Waters to Mel Brooks in London. It was such a moment. We all got to, it was surreal and great. Like I said, my life is like a movie, and I was out there doing some appearance, and I happened to be at the Savoy and ran into Mel, and then struck up this thing, had this friendship with him. When he invited me to see Young Frankenstein the next night, and then that night I brought John Waters to meet and talk with Mel Brooks. It was unbelievable.
Who was more excited to meet, Mel or John? I could see Mel
I
being
think it was equal.
Incredibly excited to meet John.
They were both so great. I mean, they're like two of my favorite people in this business, and your mom is also up there. It's just like, it was magic, to see these legends in real life, up close, talking, shooting the shit,
For someone who's not a stand-up per se, and John isn't a stand-up per se, you seem to be very ingrained in that community.
Me?
Yeah. When you're talking about Mel and my mom and all these others.
Ingrained. I don't know. I'm not just a fan. And with Mel, I don't know Mel Brooks. I hung out with him a couple of days.
But I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'm not saying it very elegantly, that's kind of being a fan, but these people make sense to you.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but I still
what do you think that is? Do you think it's just, they all look at the world from a different point of view, and they see the irony and they see the tragedy and how to make it funny. Do you think this might be way too deep of a question?
Oh, well, let me just tell you, I'm on an edible, so I'm high. So I'm trying to track you, but I got lost in what you said.
Okay. The question is, why do you think that being around these people feels so comfortable for you, even being just a fan? Is it because
I don't think I am. I mean, I'm not totally. There's a part of me that's like completely present and engaged, and there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm in the same space of these. You know what I mean? It's like it's not normal for me. I live a very normal life, and I call myself sort of the most unfamous famous person because my life is as normal as anyone's. But I do have these extraordinary opportunities and experiences to meet really cool people. So
yeah, I just find that people who connect with those kinds of people, even if it's just on a cursory friendship level, there's something about the way they look at the world. And to be part of that and know and be appealing to those people as well, you have to look at the world a little bit differently. So I wonder,
agree.
That's something for your therapist.
Okay, I'm going to bring that up.
Note to self. So, okay, the Ricki Lake Show, and then we're going to talk about the podcast because it's all intertwined. The new podcast, Raised by Ricki, you re-examine your talk show from the 90s and re-examine past episodes. Who came up with this idea?
You know him too, because you just told me something before we started talking that I knew you were in the running for this talk show. So Garth Ancier is the mastermind behind the Ricki Lake Show. I give him all credit for he was like a numbers guy. He came up through Brandon Tartikoff at NBC, and he was this young whiz, and he looked at the genre of talk television at that time in the early 90s and saw that all of the Oprah, Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse, those shows all skewed in the age range of over 50. And so he was looking at the market of young people and, trying to reach that market in that genre. And so the concept was to find a young woman to host a younger skewing talk show.
Right.
And I was one of 100 women, and I'd always heard that Melissa, you were one of them. Ray Dawn Chong was another.
Yeah.
And then a model, Veronica Webb.
I forgot about the other two. Yes, it was the four of us.
So those were the names that I remember. And then also the show, Jane Pratt had a show called Jane.
I got your, oh my God, how do you even remember this?
Okay, the only reason I remember is because Stuart Krasnow was on my podcast and he reminded me. No, but I don't remember a lot, but it's going and doing this show that I'm getting to really look at everything, how it was done, the decisions that were made, the rise of the show, all of it. It's been really interesting.
But yeah, it came down to the four of us. And I forgot about that. I forgot the Jane show.
So she was on for, I think, 16 weeks, and she was really good, and it was doing well in these local markets. But they wanted, I don't know why they changed their direction. I think they went a little younger. I'm not exactly quite sure because I actually thought she was very good.
But Jane was an adult.
Is that what it was? Because, maybe she was a little older. She
was an adult. She was a magazine editor. She was all these things.
She was polished, and I was definitely not.
And then all of us were I was coming off MTV. You know what I mean? We were a different breed.
Right. I met with them. I don't know if you went when you met. I was living in a pool house way in the valley north of Victory, and I got a call from someone who had my number. It wasn't even through my agent. And they said, "Oh, these guys are, whatever. Come meet these guys on the Fox lot." And that's the only reason I took it seriously. I was like, "Oh, it's actually on an actual studio lot." So I went and met with Garth.
Wait, the studio or the TV lot?
It was It was at Fox TV on Motor, that place like Motor.
No, that's the big
studio.
one. That's the big one.
That's the big one. So that's where my meeting was with them, because I think he was working there at the time. I have no idea, but it was Garth Ancier. I remember Kevin Mikowski and Charles Dabney. He's now Charles Perez. He had a show too. And so I met with them and flirted with them. They were all gay, but I didn't care. I was wearing a big hat. And I just remember just shooting the shit with them for a couple hours. And then that turned into like, we want you to do the pilot. I mean, it was like that, like, it just like, okay, I'm going to New York to do a pilot for a couple weeks, you know?
My meeting was with two of the three, and it was the first meeting was at a restaurant because I wouldn't set foot on the Fox lot.
Why? Because they fucked your mom over?
Yep. I wouldn't set foot on the Fox, anything to do with
By
Fox
the way,
TV lot.
can we make a deal right now? You have to come and tell this story on my podcast.
100%.
Okay.
And so you got the show, huge hit. I then did my own pilot for Universal TV.
Okay. What year? The following year?
The following year that did not go. Or was it the following year? Wait, your show was?
My show was 93.
Yes.
You did 94.
That didn't, or no, it was 2 years later, didn't go.
So it was when did Carney come on that same year?
I don't remember. I just know that mine didn't get picked up. But you ready for Small World? John Henson was my warm-up.
No way.
Yeah, and we shot it in New York.
And from Talk Soup, the guy from Talk Soup, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, okay, but back to your show. But I'll definitely come on and talk about it because we have Stuart Krasnow, who have ended up, but Stuart ended up working on my mom's talk show, her daytime talk show.
Right. Oh my God, that's right.
I know, it's very incestuous. So at the time, so who came up with the idea? Garth?
It was his idea, and he picked me, and he.
No, I'm saying for the podcast.
Oh, what do you mean? Who picked me? What do you mean?
No, I'm saying who just came up with the idea for the podcast.
Oh. Okay,
you and I went.
Okay.
You and I. Okay,
yeah.
We have to both focus.
Are you high right now?
No, sadly, I'm not.
Because I know my excuse, but no, I'm kidding. No, Lemonada Media. These two women. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they are badasses. They're super young, both moms. And they came together to start their first podcast 2 years ago called Last Day, which focused on both of their brothers had died of heroin overdoses. So they each took on the opioid crisis through this one show. You might have known Stephanie Whittles-Wax, her brother Harris Whittles. Did you ever know who Harris Whittles? From what I know of him, he was incredible. He was like under Sarah Silverman's wing. Anyway, they produced the show, and now they've gone on to create all this content. Their motto is to make content that makes life suck less. And they approached me wanting to do a retrospective of my old show, because I'd been asked to do a podcast every year since podcasts came out with different companies, and it never kind of resonated. It never like lit up for me. And then talking to them and hearing what they're about, seeing the content they produce and looking at the real structure of a show about something specific, which I thought 90s nostalgia. I think it just could be really, really fun and really cathartic for me. And I have this amazing co-host, Kaylin Allen. I don't know if you know who he is.
Who wasn't alive when your show was on.
Exactly. Well, that's the point. They really had, my team, Jess and Steph and my producing team, they wanted to bring on someone that was so from a different world and didn't grow up with me. So he's Black, he's gay, he's from Kansas City, and he's 26 years old. And he has his own real perspective on life. And he's so smart and so quick. And I love working with him. It's really been a lot of fun.
Okay. So did you realize at the time how cutting edge the show was?
Wait, your
talk show, your actual talk show.
I mean, I knew because we looked at the ratings. Like, I knew it was popular, but it's like when you're doing a talk show, you're in such a grind. Maybe it's like when you were at E and doing your shows. I had to do 195 a year, so it's like you're in it, and it's like your life is. It feels like it's surreal, but it's really your life, and you're just in it. So it's almost now all these years later that I'm looking at what happened and how lucky we were and how special it was. And like, I just don't think when I'm in it, I was able to really step outside of it and look at it from a different perspective. And it's now that I'm doing this project, I get to see, wow, like, you know, you look at the shows that are on the air, Sherry Shepherd and Jennifer Hutz, and you look at their ratings and what makes a success for them now, these ratings.
Oh,
and
it's
what
vastly
we got.
different.
I mean, it's just a different thing.
It's a different model.
Totally.
But you took on topics, you know.
Our show is relationship based. So we dealt with every single relationship you can think of that young people are interested and invested in. And we always took it from the younger person's perspective. So Oprah would do a show. My daughter, you know, is driving me crazy. She dresses like a whatever. And we would do, my mom can't figure me out. You know, it's just, it was almost like a gimmick, but it really gave the audience, the crux of our audience, a way of feeling like they were being seen and heard and represented.
If you could do the show again, is there anything that you would have changed? Like, not necessarily have on people who are like KKK members or this or that. Do you look at some of it and go, little bit of a cringe?
I mean, there's definitely moments where I'm sure I'm going to be having to face that and looking back at all these episodes where I said something that was just stupid or insensitive or hurtful, or we did topics that maybe crossed the line, you know,
that you could get canceled for today.
Yes, I'm sure there are those moments. But I mean, I look back overall at the work that I did and the way I behaved and the way I shared and just the respect I gave to everyone that came on my show. I do think we did a lot of good. Yes, there was a lot of fluff and a lot of nonsense and a lot of, you know, cheating baby daddies and this one's a whore and all that. But in talking to people that had real, like life-changing things happen to them after they were on the show in a good way, you know, and hearing stories of gay people that grow up in middle America and that don't feel like they are with anyone like them, and they were able to turn this show on every day and see themselves represented in it, or it made them feel comfortable in coming out and being themselves. I mean, that's meaningful, and that I really take a lot of pride in. It's
okay.
Really, it's
I'm
cool.
gonna pivot from meaningful to things that interest me.
Okay.
We're gonna have to discuss looking back on some of your on the fashions.
On my oh God, honey! I mean, put me on the target and take the arrow and shoot, because I can't take any responsibility because I had someone that did the styling and I just put on what they put in front of me that fit.
But don't you look back at the fashions of the time and think, oh dear God? I mean, I look at pictures of myself. We started the red carpet, I think it was 96, and I go back and there's still stuff I love, and there's stuff where I go, what the fuck was I thinking? And I thought I was so cool. And you know, the one thing I still resent, I got blasted for wearing wood jewelry that had diamonds in it.
Oh my gosh.
Because I was wearing it was so, and I look back and I'm like, fuck you, that was chic. And I was ahead of myself. But yeah, I mean, are you prepared to look back at the hair and the makeup?
Of course. I mean, yes. And I can see it with a fresh set of eyes that this was the times, and you know, the way they dressed me, it was specific in the beginning. They wanted to make me look older. So all those blazers, all that, you know, that coiffed hair that I had, it was all to make me look as mature as possible so that people would believe I would be, you know, in that role of being, you know, moderator and host, you know? But yeah, I did not really, I mean, I'm like a fat girl at heart always. Like I don't know what looks good on me, no matter, you know, it's just, I'd rather let someone else do it. You know,
right.
Like I don't take an interest really in fashion unless I'm really skinny, unless I'm really like but that's not happening anymore.
I know the feeling. At one point you're like, I can't do this anymore. What?
I'm okay.
Is there one episode that you remember that sticks out? Either one you loved or were proud of, or one that you go, oh my God, this one is going to haunt me for the rest of my life.
Well, I talked about so the wig snatch moment is probably the most infamous of any moment on my show. And that was season 1. And that was really, I want to find those women. I'm dying to find them. And the guy in the middle, we've got to, I forgot their names. But
Remind people what the wig snatch was.
The wig snatch was basically this woman came on to confront her boyfriend that he's been cheating on her with this other woman. And, we had the doorbell. But one thing was the first season, and we had the opposition, the cheater on, and we had her seated in the middle between the guy and the girl. And what happened in that moment is that the girl was in reach of her wig, and she pulls it off, and then it was very dramatic because she was wearing a wig cap underneath, but then her hair was like orange under, so the wig color and the hair was like very shockingly different. And then she does like a 1-2 and she grabs the wig cap, and it was very funny, it was very memorable, it was very like now like you don't touch any woman's hair, particularly. You don't. It's just not. Anyway, so after that show, we no longer when we had the conflict come out, they wouldn't sit directly next to the person they're mad at.
Live and learn.
We'd have them switch seats. So yeah, our producing protocols changed after that. So that was a very memorable moment. I had Fred Phelps on, that guy that was that awful Westboro Baptist Church who's long dead, but he would picket at AIDS victims' funerals. I mean, he was just such a monster, and we had him on, and that was a moment where I kicked him off my show. Memorable to me.
Very memorable.
I mean, I love the Weave Wars. I love the drag shows. I love it all. And what I love is that so many people that are our age, younger, a little bit older, they loved it too. So it's just been a real pleasure to do this show and kind of go back in time with everyone.
So much fun. So much fun. Especially because you look back at it with pride. You don't look back at it and go, oh, dear God.
No, I loved it. And I love that wasn't just my heyday. Like, I love that I went on to become a documentary filmmaker and make, even more of an impact.
Your last documentary was a very big deal.
Which, the one about birth control?
Yep.
Yeah, it's still coming out. I'm going to Berlin next week for the Berlin Human Rights Festival where it's playing, and I'm playing it in London. It's opening in all these other countries right now. Yeah, we've had a really hard time in the U.S. because guess what? Big Pharma is in bed with every fucking, network and whatever. It's very hard. So I could go on, Good Morning America and talk about my hair loss, but I couldn't show a clip of this really, really important documentary about choice, about women's options when it comes to their reproductive health,
Do you think people are surprised at how smart you are?
I don't.
People are always surprised people are always surprised that I'm smart.
Yeah, but you went to Penn and I dropped out of college. I mean, I'm not
smart is smart
in that way.
Smart is smart.
Thank you. I do. I mean, I think I'm intelligent and I think I'm curious. Like, I am not an expert on all things birth control, but I am really interested in having the conversation.
Right.
And I made my first film about birth, and it's called The Business of Being Born. It's, to me, in my lifetime, I can say this really, really, really strongly, that it's the best thing, most important thing I'll have done in my entire career. It was so personal, and I really wanted to, again, explore and have the conversation about birth options and the C-section rate in this country and midwifery care, all that stuff,
Well, that's a great pivot to our kids, because our boys went to preschool
10th Street
together.
Preschool.
10th Street Preschool. We survived.
Walk feet.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I had just, that time. So that was Owen.
And that was husband
son.
Number one,
and I was going through a divorce during that time. It was
As was the head of our preschool, and so was I.
Yes,
and I think that's why we got in. That's why we got in. I swear to God.
When I got in, we hadn't filed yet, so I don't think that had anything to do with it. But
I'm convinced that's why I got in.
Really? Okay.
Because I felt like she needed someone else who was going through it.
Yeah, that was a very difficult time. I was going to say hard time. It was hard, but it was also joyous because that preschool was really special, and our kids were so freaking cute, and I got so much out of like being there and participating in that world. And then the ugly side of ending your union is really challenging.
I sat on the couch and cried hysterically the last day of Cooper at 10th Street.
I probably did too. I did not cry when my kids went to college. I don't know about you. Did you cry when he went?
I was a sobbing mess.
I was so ready. I was so ready to have my time. I really, yeah. I couldn't cry. I was happy for them. It's like, okay, now I can like new chapter in a lot of ways. I mean, your kid is still your kid and you're always there for them. But when they're like not physically in your space, like I'm living in my new house and I don't have a room for them. Like they can visit and crash here, but I don't have rooms for my children or the 4 children that my husband has.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, but I do want to share one thing for you. So Cooper plays lacrosse. And they do the player introductions. They put them up on the big screen and they, say blah, 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 where they went to high school and their position. And my very silly son goes, Cooper Endicott, midfielder, 10th Street Preschool.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's so funny.
That always made me laugh. So you're a newlywed, basically.
Are you single? Are you in partner? I don't even.
I have.
What's the latest?
The latest is I'm just started dating someone.
Okay.
I am cautiously optimistic.
Okay. Good.
I'm cautious.
Good.
Okay. I cannot believe you went for this a 3rd time. Are you just a masochist?
Oh, I mastered
a glutton
I literally,
for punishment?
I have figured out. I have cracked the code. I am the happiest. I mean, this is not hyperbole. I am the happiest person I know. The 2 of us, he's so wonderful, Melissa. He's my person. I mean, and I also like, I'm spiritual, and my last husband who died, Christian, he passed away. He suffered from bipolar disorder.
Yes.
And he took his life.
And by the way, as someone who does a lot of work, having had my father commit suicide and done a lot of work with suicide prevention, I cannot begin to tell you how you being open about it makes a huge difference.
Thank you for saying that, because that makes me cry.
It makes
really,
a difference.
Really makes me emotional.
Normalizing the conversation.
I don't know how else to be, because it was something like, and I think his family appreciates that I keep his legacy alive. He wanted to help people, and I do feel like it is helping someone, and I get people reaching out to me, but for me, it's helpful for me to keep talking about it. Yeah, it's just been it's been such a journey and such a gift in a lot of ways. Like, I am a different person having loved this man and lost him and gone through the journey of his mental illness. I have such a new level of compassion and empathy for people suffering, people I see on the street, homeless. It's like, it just impacts you so deeply. And I believe Christian, he was not functioning well as a inhuman earth life form,
right?
But wherever he's now, he is so powerful, and he is in his prime, and he is watching over me. And I believe he handpicked my beloved Ross.
Okay, how did you guys meet?
We met during COVID, so it should never have happened. That's why it doesn't make sense. I would think it was divinely planned. I was living in the marina waiting for my Malibu house to be done. This took 7.5 years, this project. It was
of course
a
it
nightmare. So I was living in the marina, but getting really sick of paying that rent and living there, when I had this house. So I was there at the time. It was during COVID. It was right in June of 2020. So like, really, it's when we were washing our groceries and wearing gloves everywhere. It was that.
Right.
And I went on a beach walk, as I did every day with my dog. I lived on the channel, and I ran into an acquaintance. I can't even say she was a friend. She was someone I had met years earlier, but you hadn't seen people in weeks. So you get so excited, and oh my God. And we had this, not embrace, but like just this exchange. And she said, how do you go? How's it going? How's it going with your boyfriend? I was like, I'm not with him. I had been dating this guy, and we had broken up for that 2-week period. And she's like, well, what are you looking for? And I said, and I hit this like moment of like clarity, and I just was, and cynicism. Like, I was really kind of cynical, and I just said, can I curse on your show?
Please.
Oh, so I said, I want someone who has their fucking shit together, please.
Oh, that was like mine.
Okay.
I wanted someone who wasn't an asshole.
Okay, my second thing was, I want someone who doesn't want a fucking kid. Okay, because I was dating this guy that was older but wanted a kid, and I'm done with that. And then I said, I want someone who wants to have fun. Like, I am at the stage of my life, it's all about fun. And she said, I know this guy. He lives on this beach right around the corner. She's like, I know he doesn't want kids. He has a bunch of them already. I know he has shit together. He's a really successful attorney. I don't know if he's fun, but I think you could bring the fun out of him. And she gave my number. He called that day. day, we went on a first date. Do you like hearing this drawn out story? I feel like I'm okay.
No.
Okay.
Where did you go on your first date for during COVID?
He had just bought a beach condo around the corner from me, so we ended up meeting on and we're on his deck because you had to be outside. So I brought over a bottle of wine, and the story goes, he's 6'6". Okay.
Oh my God, and you are.
And I am 5'3" on a good day.
So like me, I'm 5'3" after the chiropractor.
I had shaved my head. So I had like this little fluff of gray hair, my Burning Man hat, my big giant moo-moo, my Cass Elliot moo-moo, and my dog, my little dog. And I tripped out of my Tesla, and he's like looking at me, and he's like, I look 400 pounds. He said it was like false advertising. And he looked at me, and he's like, nah, I don't think so. Anyway. So we had this first date. It was nice conversation, but I was interested in him. Because I was in between the other guy, I was on a break with him, and he was an ex-devout Mormon, and I was fascinated, and I wanted to learn everything about. So I went out with him, and he became my booty call, and then I got kind of bored with hearing because I learned everything I wanted to know about Mormonism. But I kept seeing him every couple of weeks in between Jeff, and he knew about the other guy. I was totally straight up with him. I said, I'm really messed up about this guy. And it was COVID. I was like self-medicating. I was just kind of a head case. And then on Halloween of 2020, I don't know if you're into this shit, but the blue moon, there was a super blue moon. Yes. Everyone was talking about it. All my friends were like, you got to pay attention. It's a portal. It's a whatever. And that was the night, on Halloween night, that I finally saw Ross for the first time. And I did a double take, like in my apartment. I was looking at him in the marina, and I said, oh, it's you. You're the one. And it just hit me, and my heart opened, and it was on. I mean, that was it. And he will never admit that he was way, way into me, like early on, but he was. He was. He was. I know he was. And he was just, he was dating other people, and, we weren't serious. But then we got serious, and we moved in together into this house, my beautiful dream house, on Valentine's Day. He proposed that night. We got married last January, and it's bliss. Like I literally wake up singing with this man every day, and we go to bed high and naked every night together. And we're having the best of days. It's the best.
God, that makes me happy.
Thank you. It really is like, I feel like I give people hope. I want to give people hope because I never thought I could find joy again after losing Christian. I never, let alone finding love, I never thought I'd truly smile again. And it took a long time. And I went on so many paths. I discovered Burning Man, and then I did ayahuasca journeys. And I just like kind of was on this, like, got into crypto. I was on a mission a pilgrimage to just heal and evolve and try to make sense of why this happened, and I am such a profoundly better human having gone through that and to appreciate and know that I deserve what I have right now, and he deserves it. And it's a totally different thing to love, to be in a place of total self-love and acceptance, because you can't have that without having what I have with Ross.
That's amazing. You give us hope. So before I let you go, plug the cool new fucking podcast that I'm going to be on at some point.
Yeah, you are. I'm following up with my team right now. Oh, yeah. We're starting up at the end of the month.
Yeah,
it's called Raised by Ricki, you guys. It's for anyone that grew up with me. It's all things Ricki Lake Show. We're going from behind the scenes producers with their perspective, talking to old favorite guests with incredible stories. We talked to celebrities that were on the show. I know we're having Donnell Rawlings, who's an amazing comedian who got his start on my show. Mm-hmm. He's fantastic. We had John Waters. I did Andy Cohen yesterday. We had Rosie on. It's just, it's really for anyone that loved the show, and even for people who didn't and want to know what went on back in the 90s.
Ricki, I love you.
I love you too. Great to talk to you.